Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Dogman Teepee hunting has once again found his way into the Fox Den for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy on LordeStarfox Radio. Yeah, I must feast. I am so hungry. Absolutely delicious. A tad bit more messy than preferred, yet no worries. Now that I am fully revamped, recharged, and ready to rumble, let's take a walk into the madness known as the Dogman with Phil.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf. And everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night, yes, once again, you are tuning in to Midnight Lycanthropy on LordeStarfox Radio. Phil from Dogman Teepee Hunting, a bi-weekly host, has already found his way through the werewolf encrypted infested forest and into the fox den, and has the late night fire set up for us as we again read a few chapters from the Midnight Society book and burn the timber into the early hours of the morning. Phil, how you been, man?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, not too bad, Kenny. Yeah, good to be back on. It really is. Yeah, 2 weeks, I can't believe it. Blimey, it's just flown by. Absolutely flown by. It's just it's just been a flurry of just talking to people and editing and lives and all kinds of stuff like that. It's been fun though, been really good. I've enjoyed it. How have you been?
That's excellent, my friend. Really good to see that you're staying busy. I am pretty much just as busy as you presented, doing the same stuff you have said, just trying to get caught up on emails and get those sent out to the proper people, just doing a ton of editing and working on artwork, things to try and get my content out there. Just went through and changed all my social medias to Midnight Lycanthropy and LordeStarfox. I do need to now go through YouTube, update some of my LinkedIn aspects, and man, just the grind.
Yeah, sure. Your graphics are brilliant. I love your graphics. They are so cool.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate you. It's definitely something I excel in. I got some great friends that work with me, churning out that content too. But being a graphics designer, also a former actor and model, I'm always super creative. I just think that, yeah, it makes sense. Why not make amazing artwork that just goes into telling the story that occurs? That's why I was a big fan of Monster Quest. You did see people talk here or there, but it was a lot of images of fossils, pictures of things, and that's really what I try to do as well, is just make it like a TV program. And no different than, let's say, the proof is out there. You see the guy, he talks for a second, but then he's showing you video and footage and stuff like that. And then you might see him again for just a second. And that's really what I've just tried to do, is create more or less like my own TV show.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, and it's like kind of it's why I like your show is because there's a lot of Dogmen shows, a lot of cryptid shows out there. And it's like a swirling mass of cryptid shows at the moment. But what makes yours different? One, you've got the accompanying artwork, which is fantastic, and secondly, you've got a group of people behind you who really know their stuff, and that you don't often get on a cryptid channel. You don't get that backup of knowledge. You just basically find them sort of talking about accounts which people have sent them, or talking about uh, the usual kind of stuff like Dogmen, how many different types there are, where did they go when they are not seen, do they venture into towns, do they possibly live in towns, do they live underground, but you've got the backup of some fantastic experts, and that's what makes your show so great and different, I think.
Again, such kind words, man. Totally appreciate you and very happy to have you part of what we're doing. Definitely churning out amazing content, man. I appreciate that. That's just one thing that people, well, can be upset for sure about it, but I just don't air things out without doing my research on the topic first. I will never just read an email out without sending it to my science team as well as others. Yet a lot of people just tend to, well, like I said, just read things without verifying it. And, to each their own. Yet that is definitely not my swag, because that's just misinformation in my eyes. So people can be upset about that all they want. Yet it's no different than, like I just said, Monster Quest or The Proof is Out There or any of these other shows that, try to approach the topic as we try to approach it. Same thing. They don't just put stuff out there without verifying first. Hey, this is potentially what's occurring,
Yeah, no, that's right, exactly. And it's very easy. It's very easy to slip up if you don't verify it and check it, especially if it's like new accounts or of something that has been seen. Not necessarily Dogman, can be Bigfoot, it can be Mothman, it can be whatever you want, even in captions paranormal. It has to be before it's like kind of blurted out to everyone. Yes, we saw a big giant. It was like 15 foot tall, as a Nephilim. You quite right. You have to get it checked and double checked, because if it does turn out to be a load of old tosh, you got a lot of mud on your face. And at the moment, you don't have that. You get it verified, you've got the team of experts behind you, and whatever people hear on here is fact, or as close as you can dig around to getting the facts in front of the people, which is what it's all about.
Appreciate you, my friend. And yeah, it's super important just to, like I said, get out proper information. Whether you're covering missing people, you're covering dinosaurs, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, if something is going to be presented, well, there needs to be credence to it. Meaning, I heard a really interesting theory the other day. I shouldn't even call it a theory. I'm going to call it a hypothesis, because I don't know if the guy's got enough to form it into a theory. But he seems to think that Neanderthals were more apish than actual humanish and had fur everywhere, would just consume all these other hominoids and such. Yeah, there is some sort of evidence supporting that they did consume other hominids, but there's no evidence to support that they looked the way he is potentially projecting it, which is totally fine. I mean, he's got interesting information about it, yet he doesn't really start off with explaining it's a hypothesis. He just goes right into churning out the data and presenting it to you as if it's got a ton of substantial stuff to stand on. And I don't know, that's just bad science to me. Again, people don't want to take part in what we're doing here or support what we're doing here because we actually question things. That's totally
Mm.
fine. I have no issues with that whatsoever. What's that saying? I'd rather be hated for what I am than loved for something I'm not.
No, that's it. Yeah. I do remember they did talk about that. I forget where I heard it now, about there was two species. One is Neanderthal, and the other one being like more Nordic, if you like, more Northern American.
Yeah,
You
the
know, more.
Denisovians, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and there was a distinct, an evolution, a distinct, which we still have to this day. You know, facial features. Like I would be, if it was me, I would be your proper Neanderthal. I've got the anyone that's seen me or sees me, I've got these eyes which are kind of like sunken, and my forehead comes over my eyes, a bit like, you know, proper Neanderthal. I'm kind of short, squat. You know, sometimes my knuckles drag on the floor. You know, and I'm kind of so I would class myself, yeah, facially, and as I am, I'm kind of more of a mesomorph body build anyway. Sort of wider in the chest, but short and squat, and you know, I'm not your long distance runner, put it that way. Um, so yeah, but definitely, you know, the facial traits, and then you find other people which they do look a lot more kind of, yeah, yeah, as you say, like they, you know, yeah, Nordic sort of. I don't know. It's hard to.
I hear you on that. I mean, that's kind of my stature. I'm like 6'1", like 158 to maybe 165, give or take, and got longer, kind of like blonde hair and blue eyes and such, which is, yeah, like you had stated, just a different spin-off. I mean, the Neanderthals were shorter and more compact. They were stronger. They could handle larger game animals in close quarters, but then like the Denisovians and things were able to have more mobility. They could actually pull their arms over the top of their head, meaning like using bows and things, whereas Neanderthals didn't really seem to have that range of motion. They seemed to be more spear based and just, you know, lunging, etc.
Mm,
Also, because of the shorter extremities, they would have had a much harder time walking in snow, also like
yeah.
swampy type areas. But then because they were more dense and stocky, they would be able to hold in body heat better, though, actually be able to potentially survive winters longer than, you know, something like a Denisovian that was more lean based. So pretty interesting stuff, man.
See right there. See your knowledge base, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. You know, but that's
Appreciate you.
because I'm Neanderthal as well. I don't think Neanderthals had the cranial capacity that you've got.
Appreciate it again, my friend.
I'm just saying, I'm still striking flint, man. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, so they were definitely smarter than people originally gave them, you know, consensus for. I mean, they had artwork, they also wore body paint and had jewelry and things, which is a sign of advancement, meaning if you don't have that much intellect or though nothing really clicking upstairs, you're not going to be creating art. You're not going to have that capability. Yet in some of these caves, they found Neanderthal handprints more or less on the wall, basically solidifying, hey, I lived, I was here. It's just super
Mm,
interesting because it brings a whole different approach as to how people should look at them. They weren't really just these dumb Stone Age people. I mean, you take people this day and age that are supposed to be smart, that make swords and all kinds of other weapons. They are blacksmith. They cannot even mimic what the Neanderthals and the Denisovians would do with how they were able to break rock by hitting it in a certain spot to cause a fray in the rock, which would then make a sharp edge. You have these brilliant people trying to do that, and it takes them years to be able to master that.
yeah, yeah. There's one I saw. I saw. Oh, what was it? I saw a documentary a little while back, and I think, you know, if I get this wrong, Okay, I'm. This is half a guess where it was, but I want to say it's like a South American country, right? So probably could be Brazil or somewhere like that. Anyway, what it was, there was the story goes on a documentary that it's a true account. These cavers, okay, there was a team of cavers, and they wanted to go in through the cave, to see where it leads. It's basically an unmapped cave. So if anyone recognizes this story, please comment, yeah, because I've got the country probably totally wrong, but that's what I want to call it because going by the heat and the humidity and everything else. But it was a little while ago I saw it. But anyway, so they were caving. Anyway, they came across they got right through into the cave, and these guys are mad, kind of like they're going through holes in between two rocks, which I wouldn't put a squirrel through. I wouldn't put your squirrel through it. It's just so tiny, and these guys are squeezing through, and you think, oh my god, if they get caught, they're done for. How are they going to? But anyway, they do it, and they go through one after the other. One goes through, next goes through, then it leads on. It leads on to a larger cavern, and what they found in the cavern was human remains. And they looked down, and there was all of these human remains down there, and they were like, "What the hell?" Of course, they got no signal down there, nothing. So they decide, look, we've got to report this. We can be in trouble. They didn't know that it was, centuries old. They had no idea. They just saw what they believed to be human remains. So then they went back through the tunnel, got back to the surface, and informed the authorities. And they said, look, it's kind of, we found all these bones and stuff down there, dude. You got to check it out. So the police sent in specialist cavers. And archaeologists, and it was the archaeologist that was talking on there on camera during the documentary. Fantastic documentary. I'll have a little Google for it. When I find it, I'll send it to you, Kenny, and then you can post
Sounds
it.
good, man.
Yeah, well worth a watch. It was interesting. So anyway, so the archaeologist, he was talking it through, and he said he's never come across such an early. It was basically Neanderthals. They were Neanderthals from the bone structure of the forehead, at the mesomorph form, the bone density. They looked, but what they couldn't understand is why go to the effort of they didn't down there. They and were taken through because they. I don't know how it went into detail during the program of how he knew this, but he knew it, and he said but they wanted for some reason to encase that in this special pit, which could only be reached through a maze of really small, tiny tunnels. I found that fascinating because for Neanderthals to, like the guy said, to adopt a ritual, which it was, it would have been so much easier to sort of like the Parsi do, the Parsi of a Indian tribe, which they believe in. If somebody, they'll leave the body for the birds in the tree, and the body will be pecked and everything else. They'll also leave the body out in the open for dogs to have. But these Neanderthals, they had it in their head that they've got to take them to this, I presume, in their minds, sacred cavern, and that's what they did. And I found it absolutely fascinating to a man that hadn't really found fire yet. It's crazy what they're still finding out at the moment. But yeah, if I find a documentary, I'll send you a link.
Yeah, sounds awesome, man. Totally appreciate you. There's a little interesting fact about fire too, is a lot of people don't realize there's mixed information out there thinking that fire might scare away animals, but at the same time, you might actually draw in predators as well. Wait, what? Yeah, that's what happened originally when our ancestors were sitting around fires. All right, well, those wolves obviously were not afraid of the fire. They came close enough to then get the scraps. It's just pretty interesting because I think a lot of times people are assuming because you have fire, you're safe. I don't know fully if I buy into that, meaning, like I said, I think sometimes fire might draw something towards you as well.
Probably if they're hungry enough to. I think wolves, on the whole, if you light a fire in your camp, wolves don't like fire. They don't particularly like fire, but their intelligence no. But if they're hungry enough and you're cooking a steak, yeah, 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 you know,
Pretty gnarly, right?
yeah, yeah, and you kind of, sort of, yeah, I guess they would, I mean, animals when they're hungry will do like us, will do kind of whatever is needed. We'll do
Yes.
whatever is needed. It's a funny state of affairs. We think we're living in a society, and we do live in a society up to a point. But we always have to remember that when we're talking about cryptids, we're also in a way mirroring ourselves, because these cryptids act and react like us, and so they should, because they're really got the same sensibilities. Predators coming close to a fire, if they're hungry, they'll do anything. If they got to eat, they will eat.
Definitely makes a ton of sense right there. And I do know you have some really great stuff you'd like to touch on tonight, but one more thing I'd like to just bring up to the audience. Everyone just needs to pump the brakes on Eyeshine, okay? Meaning, unless you're actually seeing something that does not look normal with Eyeshine and you can see the outline of this creature or animal, all right, then that is super interesting and intriguing. But if you just see Eyeshine, that is something that occurs very often in the animal kingdom. All right. And that is called the tapetum lucidum. What it is, it's a layer of tissue that's located behind the retina. It acts like a mirror. Through this, especially if you are a night predator and you have infrared vision, basically think of, special forces, how when it's dark out, these devices are picking up on any sort of ambience for light, whether it's stars, street lights, the moon, etc., and then it creates a vision pattern for you. Well, same thing happens with nocturnal animals, specifically predators, meaning crocodiles have a very bright yellow reddish shine to their eyes. Raccoons have a very bright red shine to their eye. Even deer will have a green, bluish tint sometimes. There's just a lot that goes on with that, meaning, yes, if you shine a flashlight into an animal's eyes, you're going to get a reflection. But also, there are numerous animals that do not need you to shine a flashlight for their eyes to glow, because as I just stated, that is what their eyes are meant for, is to grab ambient light and then cause eye shine. So just to everybody out there, just because you see 7, 8, 10 feet up off the ground, you see bright red eye shine, but you're not seeing what's causing it. In actuality, that could really just be a raccoon leaning out from behind a tree. So,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think because they have creatures have that layer of um, you know, tapetum lucidium, tapetum
yes,
to lucidium, yeah. Um, and it does help them, because obviously it amplifies any light, doesn't it? But what I find fascinating is uh, uh, the what is called chromophores or chromators, the pigment-bearing cells of a lot of lower vertebrae, including fish,
yes.
that they have the ability to shift their body coloration and pattern even. Now, whether that has the color change provides dynamic camouflage, and various kinds of communication can be served using this color changing facility that their cells are able to have. I'm not saying that this runs with eyes is different, but with us, it's like it's not too far away from us when you think about it. And it's us being in the sun, we go darker because we kind of our skin burns in a way, with the UV. But these things now, whether or not we can attribute Dogman or Bigfoot to camouflaging itself using the chromators, pigmentation bearing cells. I'm still out on that. It's a possibility. The physiological color change is characterized by its rapidity as well. So happening within minutes, or sometimes with a lot of animals that are able to do this. The source attributes the speed to different cellular mechanisms within that said animal or fish. I would like to think that we're quite as a species, we're not very adaptable. We haven't been adaptable, and for some reason, through evolution, we're kind of we don't have the facility to hide by using a change of skin color or blending into our surroundings. We're quite clumsy. We're kind of, a lot of creatures have learned, a lot of animals out there have learned to adapt to their environment in a lot more beneficial state for them than we have. We've kind of like, through evolution, we've kind of like bred ourselves out from that, trait. We're kind of not as clever as them in a lot of ways. We can't do the stuff that they can do, and when we see them do this stuff like change their color, it's still being studied at the moment with the animals. It's like kind of physiological color changes, largely researched by physiologists at the moment. Then you got cell biologists, which will look at the individual cells that change the color, because they kind of at the moment are studying this with octopi, because of the speed and the rate in which they can regenerate, and the speed and rate at which their cells can change and morph into its background. They think, I did hear somewhere that they wanted to use for military use. They were using these. It was but I could be completely wrong. Or, how could you prove that? Because they're going to cover that up anyway. But regardless, yeah. So from what I heard, they were using it under the pseudonym of dynamic camouflage. That's what the study was, the heading of the study. I've read that in a paper that was in one of the sites that I go to, academia site, and it was, code word, if you like, dynamic camouflage, and it was a study of morphological changes within animal cells, like you say, about like with Eyeshine, and like with eyes which with Dogman are meant to glow. Be very hard. There's if they glow, and I've had my own witnessing of type 1 and type 2 Dogman. I've seen Eyeshine, and it has been amber, very amber, and a type 1 being red Eyeshine, type 1 being quadrupedal, large hounds, if you like, very pointy ears. But it's easy to classify it as glowing because it is so bright, and there isn't any ambient light that I could possibly see, other than my own passive infrared. Now, maybe it's the infrared, which is just another light waveform. It's a higher light waveform. It's a more of a peaks and troughs closer together waveform. Maybe that reacts with their specific physiological color change of their tapetum lucidium tapetum lucidium. That's a mouthful on it. Maybe it reacts with that. It's still got the light sensing cells behind, which are reflective, reflect light so that they can see better. But maybe the infrared works in such a manner that, to me, everywhere's dark because I can't see it. My eyes are not reflective. I just see black darkness. I can't see the infrared. So I'm going along, and then all of a sudden, what I see in the distance, red eyes. Oh, hang on, why am I seeing red eyes? Oh, they must be glowing. Well, no, actually, when I look back at the time that I saw this thing, I did have an infrared camera attached to the bottom of my phone, one of those plug-in ones on a USB. So it's one thing which, you're quite right. I think, a lot of times with glowing eyes, yeah, but I think there's also, it is the reflection of the light cells that they have, that we have it as well. If we, when we have a red eye, when we have a photograph taken, we get red eye because there's a little part of us which kind of like still has that reflectiveness in the eye. But yeah, I think a lot of people sometimes they get mistaken because maybe they're kind of out there with a light that they are maybe unaware of, or there's a light maybe around which they're unaware of, which is reacting with the sensitivity of that particular creature's reflective eye shine, if you like. I don't know, but yeah, it's a fascinating subject, and you're completely right. I think a lot of times it needs a lot more research doing into it about the glowing eyes business.
Hey, great stuff right there for sure, my friend. Excellent observations and insight right there. It's just something that's pretty important for people just to pump the brakes on it. We got to start with logical stuff first, and meaning, right? If we are over in the United Kingdom and you hear hooves slamming off the ground, you don't think zebra, correct? You think horse, right? I mean, if you were in Africa, then you would think zebra, correct? All right. That's just what I mean about sometimes we just got to pump the brakes on things. And also, you made another very interesting observation I'd like to touch base on real quick. To each their own. I love animals. I don't go fishing or any of these things. I just don't. A lot of people think when they go fishing, oh, the fish can't feel the hook in its mouth. Well, that's very incorrect because fish are so in tune with how the ocean, the tides, and everything are changing. They actually feel pain probably more than we do because of how articulated their system has to be able to pick up on everything. Again, just very interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I don't go. I tried going fishing. It didn't work. I'm not a fisherman. I think half the reason is because I can't get that hook out. The thought of putting my fingers in the fish mouth
Yeah, it's terrible.
to unhook it. It's like, oh, what, I remember one of the last times it was a big catch. I was off a pier. I was doing some sea fishing off a pier, and I was just throwing the rod back, and as I was casting out, it got caught. It just wouldn't cast out. I was like, what the hell? Something behind me. So I looked, and there was some poor old granny sat on the chair eating her sandwich, and with her jumper, my hook had hooked her jumper, and every time I was trying to cast out, I was trying to throw her out with it. I always remember that poor old girl. Bless her. If she's listening, so sorry. But I did manage to catch a big prawn. I used a lugworm, and when I reeled it in, I had this massive prawn on the end of it, and just holding on to the lugworm. But I didn't even take that home for supper because it just sort of jumped off, scuttled along the pier, along the wooden boards on the pier, and jumped back in the water again. I was like, oh well. The one that got away. That's what.
No, I'm with you on all that, my friend. Just think, I used to have my lips pierced in a couple different spots. That hurt. And I can only imagine the equivalent of what a fish hook would feel. And actually a real funny story real quick, because my grandfather, when I was super young, actually hooked my face, meaning I was behind him and he, went to cast and somehow got it stuck in the side of my cheek. Like, yeah, good stuff. definitely hurts, man.
Oh, I don't mean to laugh, man, but
No,
damn.
it's funny, bro. But it's just like, like, what are you doing, dude? This is my face, man. Like, what?
Did he keep pulling it as well?
I mean, he did for a second until he realized that I was screaming behind him, like, yo, dude, this is my face, man. Like, what are we doing here? I was probably only like 8 or 9, but yeah, it was pretty brutal.
Damn. Yeah, I agree with you. I think fishing is kind of, I get it what people do, but it's like kind of it's not something I would do. It's not
I'm with
something
you,
I would
man.
do.
I'm really with you. I understand if you gotta, feed yourself and things like that, but I don't know, man. I just value life in general. I just think
Mm,
everything
yeah.
there's a
And
purpose and
and
everything has emotion. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like kind of Um, I couldn't. And banging it, so putting it on the stone and banging it to his head. No, I can't do
right, dude,
that.
it's so funny, my friend. Wow. As we are starting to come around third base here, you have anything else I think you wanted to touch base on tonight for sure?
Yeah. Just a quickie. I just want to run over. Or go over, not run over. I want to go over a story that I found. I was like looking around, and it's quite intriguing. Uh, it's this is comes from Japan, okay? And
Heck
there's
yeah.
a creature called Inugami, and it translates from Japanese as dog god or dog spirit. Okay, it's also known by alternate names, Irigami. Um, but most people in Japan Inugami. So um, it's a type of familiar or spirit um, found in specific regions of West Japan, like Kyushu and Shikoku, sorry, my pronunciation, I butchered that. While in public, Inugami appears identical to an ordinary dog. Um, However, its true form is that of a mummified dog's head. Okay, now I know it sounds brutal, but it's one of these folklore stories that is pertaining to werewolf and dogman phenomena. Okay, so why I say that is because this spirit is often seen by people walking through mostly towns and villages, and it's a harbinger of revenge, and it does the bidding of the person that has created this thing. Okay, a bit like the creation almost of a golem in Jewish tradition. When they create a golem out of mud and clay, and they give it life, and it's a being. It kind of like struck me, as quite fascinating. So, the mummified head, often adorned with ceremonial trappings and kept hidden, it is, in a secret shrine within its owner's house. Okay. Inugami share characteristics with other familiars. Now, by familiars, that touches base with or mirrors familiars with Salem witchcraft. The witches would often have familiars, which would be animals, usually, cats, mice. Very few, actually, to be honest with you, it's a fallacy when they said that witches and cats go together. Black cats, they very rarely had cats. It was usually other creatures like even crows, other birds, mice, rabbits. That would be their normal familiars, which they would talk to and have do their bidding. But in Japan, they had this really strange dog creature, and they absolutely 100% believed in it. They're more prevalent. They were more prevalent. These creatures were in areas where foxes were less common, which is I found strange. There's evidence suggesting an ancient tradition of Inugami worship in Western Japan and down to Okinawa. Powerful sorcerers were believed to be able to create these spirits through terrible ceremonies, using them for malevolent purposes. According to legend, the creation of an inugami is a gruesome process centered around the suffering of a dog. I'm not going to go into great graphic detail. Okay, if you Google it yourself, you can, but I'm not going to go into great graphic detail. But they would ceremonially, in a ritual, uh, create the spirit from their household dog, and they would carry out the ritual in such a manner that the dog, they would guarantee its spirit to be angry, vengeful, and a force to be reckoned with. They were creating something which they had in their mind to do their bidding in such a manner that they wanted to pay someone back, or they want, they wanted revenge over something. It's a very rare ritual. There's only a few documented accounts of it actually happening, but they are documented accounts. So the dog the dog spirit would always stay faithful, loyal to that single person or family, unless the inugami, the spirit of the dog, was severely mistreated. If they didn't respect the spirit they created, okay, the spirit they would have to offer back into their house, the spirit they would have to offer food to still, they would have to treat it basically like a better than a normal dog they had before it went through this ritual. So they gave it a lot of reverence. If it was abused, the resentful inugami could betray its master. So the person who created it would even biting them, to the point of well, it wouldn't exist anymore. Let's put it that way. Well, meant to bring wealth, they could also cause a lot of ruin. These spirits could, as possession spirits. Inugami are strongly tied to emotions and are effective at possessing emotional. They can possess emotionally unstable or weak individuals. So what we're talking about is, I spoke briefly about a case that happened in Southend-on-Sea some time back about a man documented by police who went into a police station, who said he was a werewolf and locked me up for the night. He hadn't done anything wrong in the eyes of the law. He hadn't made any crime other than wanting to be locked up, put away like a Long Chaney movie, because it's a full moon, I'll turn into a werewolf. It's the same thing that goes here, and it strikes a chord with me. So this spirit of a dog entity, Inugami, was very powerful and was able to take on a weak person's physical form. Okay, so that's where it comes into the fact of werewolf territory in my book. They typically enter through if they were to enter a weak or emotionally unstable person, they would typically enter through the ears and reside in the internal organs in the base of the stomach, is where the spirit would be, funny enough, which is very strange. Possession by inugami is associated with misfortune and various symptoms, including physical pains, intense jealousy, barking, and extreme hunger. So Joe Bloggs next door, your mate Tommy next door, if he was taken over and started barking, started getting ravenously hungry, started acting like a dog, but on 2 feet, a human being acting like that. In Japan, in old Japan, there's old accounts, he would be taken over. They would say he's been taken over by inugami, a spirit of a deceased dog that is that will be full vengeance and pain on anyone, retribution on anyone, but they are able to take over people's forms. They can also take over so not limited to while possessing human form, The possessed were said to have, now get this, Kenny, were said to have dog-like teeth and claws. Inugami are not limited to humans. They can also possess animals and even inanimate objects. Because remember, they are spirit form, creative spirit form. Rendering tools unusable. If they were to get into an axe, then poof, that's it. You've had it, because it would be possessed. Curing Inugami possession required hiring another sorcerer, and could be a lengthy and expensive process. All of these sorcerers would come to the village, and they would make their money. A lot of them would. They would come like they would selling potions, you know, um, and they would say, right, okay, if you've got any bad spirits, or Tommy down the road is acting like a dog, no problem. But it's going to cost you a lot of money. But I can get rid of that being. I can get rid of the entity. And a lot of times I won't go into too much detail, but the exorcism of it, the accounts are that person has got teeth like a dog, canines on the sides, and claws, and it has to be held down and tied down, like just like a Long Chaney movie. You got to tie me up. It's a full moon. You got to tie. There's a bit like that. Well, the practice of you creating and using these dog spirits was considered black magic, illegal, and strongly frowned upon. So back in the day, it was very big voodoo. It was a big, big thing to do. But sorcerers would create them, but it would take another sorcerer to uncreate them. Okay. The need for secrecy with the head, the mummified head. So the essence of this creature, where it got its power from, if you were to create one, you would have to have kept the mummified head of that animal, that hound, and keep it in a safe place within your home. Because if anything beset that object, then it would destroy the actual entity. And they were absolutely adamant about it. The sorcerer would be absolutely adamant, that object would have to be kept absolutely safe. If you want this thing to go roaming about, taking over people and creating these wolf men type beings. I found it a real fascinating story. I found a deep connection with Western lore of werewolves. And I just wanted to share it with you guys, because it's one of these things which isn't mainstream. We don't often hear about these entities. And I if you've got any questions, put it in the comments, and that would be great. But I'm really, I was pleased I came across that one, and thank you for letting me share that, Kenny.
Good stuff, my friend. And I mean, that's what teammates and friends are for. And as I say to all my hosts, including you, yes, technically, if someone was like, oh, who created Midnight Lycanthropy and LordeStarfox Radio? Sure, yes, it is my podcast, but I don't treat it like that. All my hosts and guests, it's like a podcast for all y'all as well. So, I mean, I definitely appreciate you coming in with good information. Don't be discouraged to come in with your own topics as well. Don't feel like you have to, I don't know, have me micromanage you, because that's not my swag at all. I mean, I trust all my hosts and all my friends to always come in with great information. So I do appreciate that. Before I forget, and as we are starting to tie this up, there is an anime, because I'm a nerd. Growing up, I used to love watching it, called Inuyasha. It's a Japanese animation. It makes references to what you had just spoke about, and pretty much all kinds of things that we talk about here, which is pretty cool, like yokai, all these really interesting lores and mystical aspects. And it took place in feudal Japan. Long story short is, you had a girl in modern time that had a well inside of a shed that was supposed to be sacred, and she ends up falling into the well, And because she is able to basically have this connection, she ends up being able to transfer back and forth through this well into feudal Japan and back into our modern day times. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. Inuyasha is actually a dog demon. He is half dog and half human. His brother, Lord Shishomaru, is same thing, half wolf, half human. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I'll have to. I didn't know that. Didn't know that. I watched a lot of like Demon Slayer, the cartoon. I watched that.
Dude, you
That's
love
quite
this
good.
then, man. I'll have to send you some stuff about it. It's really well done, man, and they hit that lore quite awesome. I just
Hmm.
think you would probably enjoy the references that they make. I mean, everything from dragons to shapeshifters to demons to vampires. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's that's what's like kind of intriguing, isn't it? It doesn't matter where you are. I mean, we're talking Japan here, and basically
Yes.
you're talking werewolves in Japan. This is feudal Japan. This is this is
Cool stuff.
yeah, and they're talking werewolves and sorcerers. I mean, how cool is that? It's like you can see where like kind of Dragon Slayer on the cartoon, the manga cartoon, where it comes from, because where he's dealing with different demonic entities and stuff like
Yep, that's
that.
what they do here, my friend, and travel all across Japan, man. So yeah, it's awesome, dude.
Yeah, and that's what these guys were doing. And I've got two accounts. I'm not reading one out because it is quite very, very graphic what they did. Very, very graphic to cure a possessed werewolf person. But it's it's and you think, my God, it's for all intents and purposes, Kenny, it's a werewolf in Japan.
Yes,
It's,
so
it's got
cool, my friend.
a human body with a wolf's head and claws and teeth. It goes into great detail, absolute great, and it's like, what the, seriously.
Yeah,
And I came across it by accident, Ken. I came across it because completely by accident. I was looking up something else, referencing something else, and it came up, and I was like, "Oh, I better have a look at this." And that's when I went on to some academia pages, and I was like, because like you, I kind of take it a little bit deeper. I try and find some examples, and some actual from the time, written law and account, as best I can, because it is going back many, many years. But it's just, yeah,
great
incredible,
stuff.
dude.
I know it's so cool, my friend. I love it. Well, is there anything else you would like to touch base on this early hours of the morning before we let you get back to some good old editing and things you need to attend to?
No, it's just it's a bit of a circus at the moment. It's so busy for us, isn't it? No,
Yeah, that's the way it
I'm
is.
good, dude. Um, I do a live show every Friday on YouTube, Dogman Teepee Hunting on YouTube. Now people are welcome. It's mostly cryptid Dogman stuff that I talk about, but also I do talk about other paranormal stuff like ghosts, ghoulies, kind of UFOs I even cover. And what I offer is, if anyone wants to come on and talk about their experience, their account, or if they've got a opinion, yeah, because I have guests on as it's an hour and a half from 7 o'clock UK time, Greenwich Mean Time. So if you're on the Eastern Seaboard, that'll be about midday-ish, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But it's bulging with stuff. And if you've got a say, if you want to have your opinion, please come on. That's fine. Dogman TP Hunting, YouTube. That's great. If you want to look me up on Facebook, my name is Phil Cotsful. And you're more than welcome. And I appreciate your time in listening to us.
Stuff right there. And yes, to the audience, make sure to check out those good old links. For the moment, this will be the conclusion of the meeting of the Midnight Society for the early hours of the morning. No worries though, Phil is a bi weekly host. you can always check him out over here on Midnight Lycanthropy, or you can go down to the good old playlist and check out our previous content. Be on the watch out for our newest content, or you can go over to the good old description and the link down below. Pop over to Phil's page and see what he's been up to. He's always churning out content, going live. So I do encourage everyone to pop over there. Make sure you hit that good old like button for us, share around our content, because YouTube does not think we are captain of the cool kids unless the rest of y'all do. So I appreciate it all. And thanks for hanging out with us tonight, man.
Captain of the cool kids. You're quite right. Yeah. Hey, you're welcome. Thank you, Kenny. As ever, it's an absolute pleasure. I love being part of the team and being on with you guys. You know, it's yeah, it's fun. It's a fun show. I like it. You know, I like it. It's a fun show. And like you say, it's just shoving stuff out there. You know, it's shoving stuff out there, and so long as we can get people's minds even, you know, kind of thinking about it, thinking about the subject, thinking about the possibilities, then I think we've done our job. You know, done pretty well.
Ooh, my creatures of the night. I do adore every single one of you. And thank you for hanging out with us tonight. Please like, comment, subscribe, share the truth, and feed the facts to the algorithm. We will catch you very soon.